Have you ever had one of those moments that completely shifts your life? For me, it was the day I met Brandon. I was just another girl in a cafe, sipping cheap coffee and trying to figure things out when he walked in. He asked if the seat across from me was taken, and in that moment, I had no idea that simple question would change everything. We hit it off instantly, sharing quirky interests and easy laughter. Soon, we were inseparable, talking about the future, including marriage. But I had no idea what was coming next, how complicated things were about to get. I still remember the day I first met Brandon like it was yesterday. I was sitting in this little dive cafe, sipping on the cheapest coffee they had, trying to sort through my jumbled thoughts and figure out what direction to take in my life. The atmosphere was a little worn, nothing fancy, just the buzz of the espresso machine and the mix of stale coffee beans in the air. Then, without warning, he walked in, almost like it was a scene straight out of a movie, but without any dramatic lighting or a soundtrack, just the ding of the doorbell and his unmistakable aftershave filling the room. "Is the seat taken?" he asked, pointing to the empty chair across from me with a smile that could probably make anyone's heart skip a beat. I did my best to play it cool, even though my pulse was racing. "Looks free to me," I replied, trying not to sound too flustered by his sudden appearance. We started talking, and it felt like we clicked instantly. He was into all the same quirky things I was: cheesy TV shows, pizza debates, pineapple, by the way, which he defended passionately, and spontaneous late-night conversations about everything under the sun. It didn't take long before we were more than just casual acquaintances. We were dating, and I felt like I'd known him for a lifetime. Before we knew it, marriage was a topic that came up in conversation. That's when things started to get a little more complicated. His parents. Meeting them for the first time felt like stepping into the lion's den. They had this way of smiling at you, but it wasn't welcoming. It was like they were sizing me up, evaluating whether I was worth their time. "So you're the girl Brandon can't stop talking about," his mom said, her voice sweet but carrying an edge that made my stomach tighten. "Guilty as charged," I replied, trying to keep my composure, though I could feel my nerves creeping up. It didn't take long for them to lay down their terms. It was prenup time. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a gold digger, and I certainly don't need anyone's money. But the way they went about it made me feel like they were treating me like a bargaining chip in some big financial game. "I'll sign your prenup," I said firmly, "but I have one condition. If either of us cheats, the cheater has to pay the other $200,000. Brandon's face went pale, like I'd just dropped a bomb on him. "Babe, I would never cheat on you," he said, looking completely taken aback. "Yeah, well, my ex said the same thing right before I caught him in the act," I shot back, letting him know this wasn't up for debate. "So it's this, or nothing." He reluctantly agreed, and even though his parents didn't look thrilled, they agreed too, though you could practically see the sour taste in their mouths. We thought that would be the end of the drama. But of course, it wasn't. One evening, we were curled up on our old, beat-up couch, the one we always meant to replace but never did because it became our spot. The TV was on, but we weren't really watching. We were too caught up in planning our dream trip to Italy, one we knew we couldn't afford but were determined to make happen. "Brandon, think about it. The food, the wine, the art. We have to go," I said, my eyes lighting up with excitement. He laughed, pulling me closer. "Tessa, babe, you had me at food. But let's be real. Our bank account is more camping in the backyard than romantic getaway to Venice." I playfully nudged him. "So we'll save up. We'll cut back on things we don't need, like, I don't know, your video games." He pretended to be horrified. "Not the video games. Take my shirts, my shoes, even my coffee maker, but not the games." We laughed. That was us, always dreaming big, but still grounded in reality. We didn't need anything fancy to be happy. Our joy was in the small things, like Brandon making breakfast on Saturdays. He couldn't cook to save his life, but somehow he had mastered scrambled eggs and toast, served with a side of terrible coffee. Still, I loved those mornings. "Hey, I'm thinking scrambled eggs today. What do you think?" he'd ask, already making his way to the kitchen. "Only if you promise not to burn the toast this time," I'd yell back, adding, And I'm making the coffee. One day, the topic we had been dancing around finally came up. We were doing dishes together, a simple task that somehow felt special because we were doing it side by side. "Tessa," Brandon said, breaking the comfortable silence. "We need to talk about starting a family." I paused, a plate still in my hand. "I know, it's scary, isn't it? What if we can't?" Brandon turned to me, drying his hands on a towel. "Then we'll handle it together. But we won't know unless we try, right? I mean, how hard can it be?" I laughed, a mix of nervousness and love bubbling up. Famous last words, babe. But that was our thing. No matter what life threw at us, we faced it together, even when his mom started dropping not-so-subtle hints about grandchildren every chance she got. "Tessa, darling, when are you going to give me some grandbabies?" she'd say, her voice dripping with sweetness, though her message was anything but. "You're not getting any younger, you know." I'd force a smile, biting my tongue. "We're working on it, aren't we, Brandon?" He'd always jump in to defend me. "Yeah, Mom, relax. These things take time." And that's just how things were with us. We took it all in stride, together. As the year dragged on, the pressure started to pile up, not just from Brandon's mom, Eleanor, but from inside our own hearts. We wanted a family so badly, but it just wasn't happening as easily as we'd hoped. Ever since Eleanor found her new hobby of making my life miserable, our home had turned into a battlefield, and her weapon of choice was her sharp, unforgiving tongue. What once were occasional snide remarks had turned into a daily assault on my confidence and my role as a wife. Things came to a head one Sunday at lunch, a day that was supposed to be laid back and peaceful. Eleanor, with her impeccable sense of bad timing, showed up uninvited just as we were about to sit down. The atmosphere instantly turned tense the moment she walked through the door, her eyes scanning the room like she was about to conduct a military inspection. "Well, isn't this just cozy?" she started, her voice dripping with sarcasm as her eyes flicked over the simple meal I had prepared. "You've really outdone yourself, Tessa. I can tell you've been slaving away in the kitchen all morning." Her gaze met mine briefly, the corners of her mouth lifting into a smug smirk. I forced a smile, determined to keep the peace. "It's nothing fancy, Eleanor. Just something quick and easy. Please have a seat." But as soon as we sat down, she wasted no time launching into her usual routine. "You know, Tessa," she said, her voice laced with condescension. "I was talking to Mrs. Henderson the other day, and she mentioned that her grandson was just born. It got me thinking, when are you and Brandon going to give me some good news? It's not like you're getting any younger." I could feel my face flush with a mix of embarrassment and anger. I glanced at Brandon, silently pleading for some support, but he was suddenly very interested in his plate. "Mom, come on," Brandon muttered weakly, but it was half-hearted and we all knew it. Eleanor pressed on, relentless. "And Brandon, dear, I don't mean to be harsh, but you're not a charity. You work hard for your money. Why waste it on Tessa if she can't even fulfill her basic duties as a wife? A cleaning service and a cook would be much more efficient, don't you think?" That's when I snapped. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Eleanor, I'm trying my best here. It's not like I don't want kids, and as for the house and my cooking, I didn't realize marriage was a service contract." Eleanor scoffed. "Well, it's not a free ride either. You have responsibilities, Tessa, ones you're clearly not living up to." The air in the room was thick with tension, and I could feel tears stinging the back of my eyes. But what hurt more than Eleanor's cruel words was Brandon's silence. He finally spoke, but his words cut deeper than I expected. "Yeah, Mom has a point. Maybe we should think about getting some help around here. It'd make things easier for you too." Easier for me. Those words stung, hitting me like a sharp jab. It was becoming painfully clear. I was fighting this battle alone. In the days that followed, Eleanor's visits became more frequent, and with each one her criticism grew sharper. She'd inspect every corner of the house, pointing out even the smallest flaw. "You call this clean?" She'd scoff, her tone dripping with disdain. My eyes must be playing tricks on me because this looks like a pigsty. Then she'd move on to jabs about my appearance. "Is that what you're wearing? A wife should dress to please her husband. No wonder Brandon's always so tired. He has to come home to this." I tried to defend myself, though it felt futile. "Eleanor, I don't dress for Brandon. I dress for me, and he's tired because he works hard, not because of what I wear." But it was like talking to a brick wall. She'd already made up her mind about me, and no matter what I said, it wouldn't change a thing. What hurt the most wasn't even Eleanor's constant criticisms. Though they were painful enough, it was Brandon's refusal to take my side. After each one of Eleanor's visits, we'd argue. "Why won't you stand up for me, Brandon?" I would plead, frustration building. "She's walking all over us, and you're just letting it happen." "She's old, Tessa," he'd respond, always with that tired, dismissive tone. "Set in her ways. What do you want me to do? Kick my own mom out?" "No, I just want you to be my husband," I'd say, feeling my heart sink. "Stand by me, not her." It was becoming clearer by the day that this wasn't just about Eleanor's disapproval. It was about us, whether we were strong enough as a couple to stand united, or if we'd let her harsh words tear us apart. As the days dragged on, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a passing phase. It felt like we were under siege, and if we didn't act soon, there might not be anything left to save. Things between me and Brandon had been chilly ever since Eleanor had ramped up her criticisms, but it wasn't just the tension at home. Brandon had started acting strange, and it wasn't the kind of strange you get from work stress. It was something deeper, something that made my stomach churn with unease. It started with the phone calls. Brandon had always been open about his phone, no secrets between us, but lately, every time he got a call, he'd step out of the room. The caller ID always showed the same name, John Work. "Who's John Work?" I asked one evening, trying to keep my tone casual. But when I said it, I noticed Brandon flinch, a clear sign that something was off. "Oh, just a new guy at the office," he replied, but I could see the tension in his eyes. "Asks lots of questions, you know." I didn't buy it. Something was wrong, and I had a sinking feeling it had everything to do with the cracks in our marriage, and maybe more than I was ready to face. But it didn't stop there. Brandon, who had never cared much about his appearance, suddenly started paying attention to the way he dressed. Gone were the old graphic t-shirts and worn-out jeans. Now it was crisp button-up shirts and slacks, and cologne. He was wearing cologne now. Since when did he care about smelling like a department store? I thought to myself, watching Brandon get ready one morning. The new clothes, the cologne, the sudden attention to his appearance. It wasn't like him. "What's with the new look, Brandon? Got a job interview or something?" I joked, trying to keep it light, but I couldn't shake the unease growing inside me. He smirked, a little too quickly. "Just felt like changing things up. No harm in that, right?" But the changes weren't just about his clothes. The late nights at work were becoming more frequent. "Text me another long one, babe. Sorry, this project's killing me. Won't be late, I promise." But the clock would tick past midnight and I'd still be waiting, pretending everything was fine. I tried to dismiss it, convincing myself it was just work stress, but the feeling that something was wrong clung to me like a shadow. That's when I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private detective. It felt surreal, like something out of a bad TV show, but I had to know the truth. When the envelope arrived, I stared at it for what felt like hours before I finally opened it. The contents were as heartbreaking as they were damning. Photos of Brandon with another woman, their intimacy undeniable in each frame. They looked happy, wrapped up in a world that didn't include me. But it wasn't just the photos. The recording was the real dagger. I listened to their conversations, filled with endearments and plans. They weren't just having an affair, they were in love. Or at least Brandon was in love with her. I sat there, the evidence spread out in front of me, my heart breaking piece by piece. This was it. the proof that could shatter our marriage and anchor me in a stormy divorce, should it come to that. But I wasn't ready to confront him, not yet. I needed a plan, a way to navigate this wreckage with my dignity intact. For days, I carried the secret like a heavy stone, pretending everything was normal. Brandon continued his charade, and I played the part of the perfect wife, smiling, cooking, cleaning, all while the weight of the truth crushed me from the inside. Our conversations became rehearsed, each word measured carefully. We danced around the elephant in the room, pretending everything was fine. "Everything okay? You've been quiet lately," Brandon asked one evening, his concern sounding almost genuine. "Yeah, just tired. Work's been crazy," I lied, the words bitter on my tongue. It started as any ordinary day, but it quickly turned into something else. I was walking past Brandon's office when I overheard voices. The door was slightly ajar, and I hesitated before listening. It was Brandon and his mother, Eleanor. Their conversation wasn't light or casual, it was heavy, laden with tension and something far darker. "I'm telling you, Mom, I can't keep doing this." Brandon's voice came through, strained and exhausted. "It's not just about the kids anymore. I've lost all feeling for Tessa. It feels like we're roommates, not husband and wife." Eleanor's response was sharp and biting. "Of course you feel that way. She hasn't given you a child. And let's be honest, what else has she brought to this marriage? But don't rush things. My 68th birthday is coming up. We wouldn't want to miss out on a generous gift from her, would we?" Her words twisted the knife deeper, cold and calculating. It was clear they were using me, biding their time until they could throw me away. Brandon's voice turned flat, almost mechanical. "And after we get that nice, expensive gift, we can just kick her to the curb, right?" "Exactly, dear," Eleanor agreed, her voice dripping with malice. "Just keep her around a little longer." I stood frozen, rooted to the spot. They were talking about me like I was some kind of disposable object, planning my removal from the family as if it were a simple chore. The betrayal was crushing, but with it ignited something inside me, a burning need for revenge. They thought they could use me and toss me aside. They were about to learn exactly who they were dealing with. A few days later, at a family dinner, Eleanor, with her usual smug expression, casually brought up her birthday. "So, Tessa dear, what are you planning for my birthday? I do hope it's something special," she said, eyes glittering with expectation. I met her gaze, my face an unbreakable mask. "Actually, Eleanor, I was thinking of hosting a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant, a night you won't forget." Her eyes gleamed with greed, and she exchanged a brief, satisfied look with Brandon. They thought they had me trapped. What they didn't realize was I was already 2 steps ahead. "Oh, Tessa, that sounds just wonderful. Just close family, of course, to keep it intimate," Eleanor purred, her voice sweet as syrup. "Of course, Eleanor. It'll be our pleasure," I replied, the words tasting like poison on my tongue. The weeks leading up to Eleanor's 68th birthday felt like a slow, torturous countdown. Every smug comment from her, every indifferent glance from Brandon, only made my resolve harder. My plan was simple yet audacious. Something straight out of a thriller. Host a lavish dinner, pretend to be the dutiful wife, and then, at the perfect moment, deliver the devastating blow. The night before the party, the tension at home was palpable. Brandon, completely oblivious to what was brewing, was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "Everything set for tomorrow?" he asked, not even bothering to look up. "Oh, you could say that," I replied, my voice calm, belying the storm raging inside me. The day of the party arrived, and as guests filled the luxurious dining room I had reserved, the air was thick with anticipation. My heart raced, not from nerves, but from the adrenaline coursing through me. Eleanor, basking in the attention as usual, lavished praise on the restaurant. "Oh, Tessa, you've outdone yourself. This place is exquisite," she exclaimed loudly enough for everyone to hear. As the meal progressed, the conversations felt forced, the laughter hollow, but I played along, knowing what was coming. As the dessert plates were cleared, The waiter discreetly approached me with the bill. $66,000, he whispered. Without a second thought, I handed over my card, the gesture unnoticed by most. Then, just as Brandon's smirk spread across his face, he decided it was time to make his move. "Tessa," he began, his tone cold and detached. "I think it's time everyone knew. I'm tired of this. Of us." The tension between us had been brewing for months, but Brandon's declaration caught me off guard. "I want a divorce," he said, his words hanging in the air like a toxic cloud. It sucked the noise out of the room, leaving only a suffocating silence. I sat frozen for a moment, my mind racing to process the weight of his statement. Before I could respond, Eleanor, ever quick to twist the knife, chimed in. "Well then, since that's out in the open, I think it's best you leave, Tessa. We're celebrating family tonight, and you're no longer part of it." The room went deadly quiet. All eyes turned to me, waiting for the inevitable collapse. But instead of crumbling, I stood with a calmness I didn't truly feel. Without a word, I nodded and walked out. The cool night air slapped me as I left behind the only life I had known for years. Each step home was heavy, the reality of what had just happened sinking in. By the time I reached the apartment, no, his apartment, a plan had already begun to take shape in my mind. There was no time for tears, no room for sorrow. I packed quickly, numbed by the cold resolve that had settled over me. This was the end of one life and the start of another. As I zipped up the last suitcase, my phone buzzed with a relentless vibration. I ignored it at first, but when curiosity got the better of me, I saw Eleanor's name flashing on the screen. Her voice, sharp and grating, immediately filled my ear. "Tessa, the payment didn't go through. You need to fix this now." Oh, the irony. In my preparations for the inevitable, I had blocked the shared account, knowing it would be the first thing Brandon would try to use against me. I let the words sink in, savoring the moment before replying calmly. "That's unfortunate, Eleanor, but since I'm no longer part of the family, as you so eloquently put it, you'll have to figure this one out." Her outrage exploded through the phone, her words screeching with venom, but to me it was music. I could already imagine the chaos unfolding at the restaurant, the staff demanding payment, Eleanor throwing tantrums, and eventually the arrival of the police to calm the scene. It was a fitting end to the sham my marriage had become. The next morning, with the divorce papers in hand, I returned to what used to be our shared home for one final time. As soon as I stepped through the door, the tension in the air was palpable. Brandon and Eleanor were already arguing, but when they saw me, their hostility turned into a united front. "You've got some nerve showing up here after last night," Brandon spat, his face a mask of disbelief and anger. Eleanor, ever the viper, hissed in agreement. "Ungrateful wretch! You embarrassed us in front of the whole city. Do you know how humiliating it was to have the police show up? People were laughing, filming." I met their fury with a calmness I didn't truly feel. "Embarrassed? Is that really what you're concerned about right now?" I tossed the divorce papers onto the table, the damning photos of Brandon's affair on top. "This is what you should be worried about." Brandon's face drained of color as he picked up the photos, Eleanor peering over his shoulder. Their anger shifted to shock and then panic, the gravity of the situation sinking in. "And let's not forget about the prenup, shall we?" I added, my voice as cold as ice. "You cheat, you pay, $200,000 to be exact." Eleanor's face contorted in rage. "You wouldn't dare! You can't do this to us!" "Oh, but I can," I said, the words heavy and final. "And I will." Brandon, realizing the depth of his mistake, tried to salvage the situation. "Please, let's talk about this. We can fix it." I couldn't stop the bitter laugh that escaped me. "Fix it? You think a few words can undo this?" "No, Brandon, it's done." Eleanor attempted her usual manipulative approach, softening her tone, feigning concern. "Tessa, darling, please think about what you're doing. This will ruin us." I met her gaze, unwavering. That ship has sailed, Eleanor. You should have thought about that before. Their pleas became more desperate, but my decision was already made. I was done being their pawn. In the end, Brandon had no choice but to borrow money from his parents to pay me. As I walked out of their house for the last time, check in hand, I felt a surprising lightness. The weight of their betrayal was gone, and I was finally free. With the payout, I found a small but cozy place of my own. It wasn't much, but it was my sanctuary away from the chaos of my old life. Life became quieter, and I cherished it. I had a job that kept me busy, neighbors who smiled and waved, and a little garden to care for. Every now and then, though, a piece of gossip from the past would find its way to me. Just the other day, while grabbing coffee at a local shop, I ran into someone from the old neighborhood. After the usual pleasantries, they leaned in, lowering their voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Have you heard about the latest drama with your ex and his mom?" Curiosity piqued. I raised an eyebrow. "Can't say that I have. Do tell." The gossip was delicious. Apparently, Brandon's new girlfriend wasn't doing too well with Eleanor. They fought constantly, making my situation seem like a walk in the park. As I walked away, coffee in hand, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Once, news like this would have sent me spiraling, but now it was just another bit of someone else's drama. These days, my biggest concerns are whether my tomatoes will ripen before the squirrels get to them, or if I'll ever master yoga without looking like a newborn deer on ice. Life is simpler, quieter, and infinitely sweeter on this side of the chaos. Did I do the right thing by standing up for myself? Or should I have stayed silent and let the past stay buried? After enduring years of betrayal and manipulation by Brandon and his mother, Eleanor, I finally took control of my life. When Brandon asked for a divorce, I used the opportunity to reclaim my dignity. At a family dinner, I revealed the truth, shared the evidence of his affair, and reminded them of the prenup. Despite their anger, I walked away with my self-respect intact, knowing that I had taken the necessary steps to free myself from their toxic grip. From the perspective of personal growth and empowerment, my decision to speak out and take control was necessary. For years, I had tolerated their cruelty, trying to please them and keep the peace. However, their lack of support, particularly from Brandon, revealed that I had been fighting a battle alone. By confronting them, I stopped being passive in my own life. I took the power back, choosing to prioritize my well-being over their comfort. This was a pivotal moment of self-liberation, where I decided not to let their toxicity dictate my future. Was it worth the emotional toll to stand up for myself, or should I have chosen a quieter path and kept the peace, even at the cost of my own happiness? What would you have done in my situation? Would you have confronted the betrayal head-on, or stayed silent to avoid the drama? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of strength and survival.
The call came during my morning shift at the cafe, right as I was trying to balance 3 cappuccinos on a tray. I almost dropped everything when I saw my father's name on the screen. He never called during work hours, that was our deal. My heart started racing before I even answered. My name is Alara, and until that morning, I thought I had my life pretty well figured out. Junior year of college, decent grades, and a part-time job that kept me in coffee and textbooks. Sure, things weren't perfect, but they were stable. At least that's what I thought. Hello. I tucked the phone between my ear and shoulder, setting down the drinks at table 7. It wasn't my father's voice that responded. Alara, dear. The saccharine tone of my stepmother, Serafina, made my stomach clench. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. I'm at work, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. 3 years of practice had taught me how to handle these conversations. Is everything okay with Dad? Oh, your father is fine. She paused, and I could practically see her perfectly manicured nails drumming against our kitchen counter. I'm calling about the monthly support payments. The world tilted slightly. Those payments were my lifeline, covering rent, utilities, and part of my tuition. Dad had promised they'd continue until I graduated, his way of supporting my decision to live off campus. What about them? Well, dear, we've had some unexpected expenses come up. Your father and I have been discussing our finances, and we've decided it's time for you to become more independent. The payments will stop at the end of this month. The cappuccinos on table 7 grew cold as I stood there frozen. Does Dad? Did he agree to this? Of course he did. He's very proud of how responsible you've become. We both think you're ready to handle things on your own. My coworker Jude caught my eye from behind the counter, pointing at the growing line of customers. I held up one finger, trying to process what I was hearing. Can I talk to Dad? He's in meetings all day. Very busy with the new project. Serafina's voice softened with false sympathy. I know this might seem sudden, but you're a big girl now. 21 is plenty old enough to stand on your own 2 feet. I wanted to scream that this wasn't about age. It was about promises. About trust. About the agreement Dad and I had made before I chose my college and mapped out my future. Instead, I swallowed hard and said, "Right? Thanks for letting me know. I'm so glad you understand." Oh, and Alara. Her tone shifted slightly, almost triumphant. We'd appreciate it if you didn't bother your father about this. He's under enough stress as it is. The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at my phone, noticing my hands were shaking. Earth to Alara. Jude appeared beside me, coffee pot in hand. You okay? You look like you just saw a ghost. I'm fine, I said automatically, but my voice cracked on the second word. Yeah, and I'm the Queen of England. He studied my face. Take 5 minutes. I'll cover your tables. I retreated to the break room, did some quick math on my phone's calculator, and felt my chest tighten. Even with my cafe wages, I'd be short on rent next month. Tuition payments loomed like storm clouds on the horizon. As I splashed cold water on my face, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Something in my expression had changed, hardened. Maybe. Dad might have agreed to cut me off, but I knew Serafina's fingerprints were all over this decision. The same way they'd been all over every major change in our family for the past 3 years. Fine. If she wanted me to be independent, I'd show her independent. But first, I needed to figure out what was really going on with Dad's finances and why Serafina was so eager to keep me from talking to him about it. I pulled my hair back into a tight ponytail and straightened my apron. I had 4 hours left in my shift to start planning my next move. And for the first time since Serafina entered our lives, I felt something beyond hurt and confusion. I felt angry. I spent that night going through old photos on my laptop, searching for something I couldn't quite name. Maybe closure. Maybe answers. The images flickered across my screen like scenes from someone else's life, Dad and me at my high school graduation, both of us grinning like idiots. His arm around my shoulders, my mortarboard slightly crooked. 3 years felt like 3 decades. My phone buzzed. Myra's name lit up the screen. "Please tell me you're not still obsessing over those photos," she said when I answered. "I'm not obsessing." I clicked through another image, Dad's wedding to Serafina. My smile in that one looked more like a grimace. "I'm investigating." Same thing. Listen, I talked to my roommate. She's moving out next month to live with her boyfriend, so her room's yours if you want it. Way cheaper than your current place. I paused on a photo from Christmas 2 years ago. Dad had fallen asleep on the couch, and Serafina sat beside him, scrolling through her phone. Something about her expression made me uneasy, like she was plotting rather than relaxing. "Alara? You still there?" "Yeah, sorry." I closed my laptop. "Are you sure about the room?" "I don't want to impose." "Stop it. You're not imposing, you're saving me from having to interview random strangers from Craigslist. Plus, you make the best coffee in town. That's just because I steal beans from work. See? You're already the perfect roommate. Criminal tendencies and all." I laughed, but it felt hollow. Moving in with Mira would solve my immediate housing crisis, but it felt like admitting defeat. Like proving Serafina right about my inability to stand on my own. "I need to think about it," I said finally. "Well, think fast. Term starts in 3 weeks," and Mira stopped mid-sentence. "Oh shit, speaking of term, have you checked your student account lately?" My stomach dropped. "No, why?" "There's some issue with the financial aid office. Everyone's getting emails about verification or something." I scrambled to open my laptop again, this time logging into my student portal. Sure enough, there was a notification, "Additional documentation required for financial aid processing." This can't be happening. I muttered, clicking through the requirements. They needed updated bank statements, tax returns, and my heart nearly stopped, my father's financial information. What's wrong? They need Dad's signature on some forms. And his tax returns. I ran a hand through my hair, tugging at the roots. How am I supposed to get those without telling him what's happening? Maybe this is a sign that you should tell him. You don't understand. If I tell him, Serafina will twist it around somehow. Make it seem like I'm being ungrateful or trying to cause problems. I thought about the way she looked at me during that last family dinner. Like I was an inconvenience she couldn't quite figure out how to handle. I need to handle this myself. By doing what, exactly? Before I could answer, another call came through, Dad's number. My finger hovered over the accept button. Mira, I have to go. Dad's calling. Good. Talk to him. I ended the call with Mira and took a deep breath before answering. Hey, Dad. Princess. How's my favorite daughter? The familiar nickname hit like a punch to the gut. I'm your only daughter, Dad. Still my favorite. He chuckled, and for a moment, he sounded like his old self. Listen, Serafina mentioned she talked to you about the finances. Here it was. My chance to ask him directly, to challenge what Serafina had told me. But something in his voice, a weariness I'd never heard before, made me hesitate. Yeah, she did. I kept my voice steady. It's fine, Dad. I understand. That's my girl. Always so independent. He paused. You know I'm proud of you, right? The words felt like ash in my mouth. Thanks, Dad. I have to go, early shift tomorrow. After hanging up, I stared at my reflection in the darkened laptop screen. The girl looking back at me seemed different from the one in those old photos, harder, more determined. I opened my phone and texted Mira, I'll take the room. Then I started making a list. If I was going to figure out what Serafina was really up to, I needed more than just suspicions. I needed proof. And I knew exactly where to start looking. Moving day with Mira should have been my biggest concern, but life had other plans. I was sorting through my old room at Dad's house. He and Serafina were supposed to be at some charity lunch, when I heard voices drifting up from the backyard patio. The market's been good to us, Serafina was saying. We could easily get another 100,000 out of the investment account. I froze, box of college textbooks in my arms. Investment account? Dad had always said he kept everything in his checking and retirement funds. I don't know, honey. Dad's voice sounded strained. That money was meant for what? Alara? She's handling things just fine on her own. You said so yourself. I set the box down silently and crept closer to the window. Through the gaps in the blinds, I could see them sitting at the patio table. Serafina wore one of her designer sundresses, the kind that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Besides, she continued, the contractor needs the deposit by Friday if we want to start the renovation next month. Renovation? I thought about my student loan applications, still sitting incomplete on my laptop. The house is fine as it is, Dad said, but his tone had that familiar weakness to it. The same one he'd had when Serafina convinced him to sell Mom's old piano. Darling, we talked about this. If we're going to host the holiday party for your firm's partners, everything needs to be perfect. She reached across the table, touching his hand. Don't you want to make a good impression? This could mean a partnership for you. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably Mira wondering where I was, but I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. You're right, Dad sighed. You're always right about these things. Of course I am. Serafina's laugh tinkled like broken glass. I'll call the contractor today. Oh, and we should look at updating my car while the market's good. The lease is almost up, and I saw the most gorgeous Mercedes yesterday. I backed away from the window, my hands shaking. The investment account. The renovations. The new car. Meanwhile, I was working double shifts and eating ramen to make ends meet. My phone buzzed again. This time I answered. Where are you? Mira asked. Jude and I have been waiting with the truck for 20 minutes. Something came up. My voice sounded strange, even to me. I need to check something first. Check what? Alara, what's going on? I was already moving down the hallway toward Dad's home office. Remember how Dad used to let me handle some of his online banking? Back when Mom was sick. Yeah. I wonder if those login credentials still work. Alara, Myra's voice held a warning. Whatever you're thinking. I'll be there soon. I hung up before she could talk me out of it. Dad's computer hummed to life. My hands hovered over the keyboard as doubt crept in. This wasn't just snooping, this was probably illegal. But then I remembered Serafina's casual mention of another 100,000 while I was drowning in financial aid forms. The old password worked on the third try. Within minutes, I was staring at account statements I'd never seen before. Investment accounts, hidden savings, and, oh my God, I whispered. There it was, a recurring monthly transfer to my old account, the one Dad had set up for my college expenses. The same amount as always, every month like clockwork. The money hadn't stopped at all. It was being redirected to an account in Serafina's name. Footsteps on the stairs sent me scrambling to close windows and shut down the computer. I'd barely made it back to my room before I heard them in the hallway. Oh. Serafina's surprise sounded perfectly rehearsed when she saw me. We didn't know you were here, dear. Just getting the last of my things. I hefted the box of textbooks, grateful it hid my trembling hands. Dad smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Need any help? No thanks. I managed a tight smile. I've got it under control. And I did. For the first time since this whole mess started, I knew exactly what I was dealing with. The question now was, what was I going to do about it? As I walked past Serafina, she gave me one of her practiced smiles. She had no idea I'd just discovered her secret. No idea what was coming. That would change soon enough. The bank statement felt heavy in my hands as I sat in Myra's living room, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. 3 months of redirected payments, each one a betrayal in neat, digital numbers. My fingers traced the routing information, memorizing Serafina's account details like a battle plan. You need to tell your dad, Mira said, perched on the arm of the couch. This is literally theft. It's not that simple. I folded the paper carefully, tucking it into my laptop case. If I go to him now, Serafina will just spin some story about protecting the money for my future, or whatever garbage she's good at making up. My phone lit up with a text from Jude. Your stepmother's here. Ordering your usual table's worth of fancy lattes. I sat up straighter. Serafina never came to my side of town unless she wanted something. The cafe was only 2 blocks away. I have to go, I said, already reaching for my shoes. Mira grabbed my arm. Wait, what are you planning? Nothing. I just need to see something. The walk to the cafe felt like crossing a battlefield. Through the front window, I could see Serafina holding court at my regular table, her designer handbag occupying the chair where I usually sat. Jude caught my eye as I entered, giving me a subtle nod. Alara, Serafina's voice carried across the cafe. What a lovely surprise. Join me. Several customers turned to watch as I approached the table. Serafina's smile never wavered, but her fingers tightened around her cup. I was just telling your charming coworker about our renovation plans, she said as I sat down. Your father is so excited about the new kitchen. I bet he is. I kept my voice neutral, watching her face. Must be expensive. Oh, you know how these things are. She waved her hand dismissively. But we're being very careful with our finances. Speaking of which, she leaned forward, lowering her voice. I noticed you were in the house yesterday when we came home. My heart skipped, but I forced myself to meet her gaze. Just getting the last of my things. Of course. She took a sip of her latte, leaving a perfect lipstick print on the rim. You know, your father mentioned something interesting this morning. Apparently, his computer showed some unusual login activity yesterday. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Behind the counter, Jude was very deliberately not looking our way. Really? I said, proud of how steady my voice sounded. Serafina's smile turned sharp at the edges. We changed all the passwords, of course. Just to be safe. You understand. Completely. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Is that all you wanted to tell me? She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Actually, I brought you something. A little housewarming gift. Inside was a check for $5,000. Consider it a fresh start, she said softly. A chance to prove you really can be independent, without needing to investigate things that don't concern you. The check burned in my hands. $5,000, enough to cover next semester's tuition deposit, with some left over for books. All I had to do was take it and walk away. That's very generous, I said, carefully placing the check on the table. But I think I'll stick with my current plan. And what plan is that? The warmth had vanished from her voice. I guess you'll find out. I turned and walked away, my legs shaking but my head high. Behind me, I heard the sharp click of Serafina's heels as she stood. Your father won't believe you, she called after me. He never does. I paused at the door, looking back at her perfectly composed face. We'll see about that. Outside, the afternoon sun felt too bright, too harsh. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Smart girl. But this won't end well for anyone. Think about your father. I took a screenshot of the message before blocking the number. Serafina thought she was warning me off, but she just made a crucial mistake. She'd shown me she was scared. Now I just had to figure out exactly what she was scared of. I found the first letter while helping Jude sort through old mail at the cafe. It was addressed to my father, postmarked 3 months ago, from his company's accounting department. My hands trembled as I slid it into my apron pocket. You know that's a federal offense, right? Jude said, but his eyes were kind. Added to my growing list of crimes. I tied my hair back, preparing for the morning rush. Did you know Serafina's been coming in every day this week? Yeah, always when you're not here. Asking weird questions about your schedule, your friends. He hesitated. Your dad came in yesterday too. My stomach lurched. What? Why didn't you tell me? Because he looked terrible, Alara. Like he hasn't slept in days. He kept asking if you seemed okay, if you needed anything. The morning crowd started filtering in before I could respond. As I worked the espresso machine, my mind raced. Dad never came to this part of town unless he had to. And he definitely never checked up on me through other people. During my break, I opened the letter. Inside was a notice about unauthorized changes to Dad's retirement account beneficiaries. All funds had been redirected to a single beneficiary, Serafina. My phone buzzed a text from Mira. 911. Your stepmom's at our apartment. I nearly dropped the phone. What? Why? Says she's dropping off more of your stuff. But she's just sitting here, asking questions about your classes, your study habits. It's creepy. Don't tell her anything. I'm on my way. Wait, there's something else. She mentioned your mom. I froze halfway through untying my apron. What about her? Something about your mom's old medical bills. Said your dad's still paying them off. That couldn't be right. Mom's insurance had covered everything. I'd helped with the paperwork myself. Get her out of there, I texted back. I don't care how. Just get her to leave. Alara. Jude's voice made me jump. He was holding out a fancy envelope. She left this for you this morning. Said it was important. Inside was an invitation to Dad's firm's holiday party, scheduled for next month. A handwritten note in Serafina's elegant script read, "Families should stick together. Last chance to make the right choice." I need to leave early, I said, crumpling the invitation. Already cleared it with management. Jude grabbed my bag from under the counter. But first, there's something you should see. He pulled up a social media post on his phone, a photo from one of Dad's colleagues. It showed Serafina at some charity event last week, wearing a diamond necklace that looked eerily familiar. Isn't that your mom's? Jude zoomed in on the image. You showed me a picture once, remember? The necklace had been my grandmother's, passed down to Mom. Dad had kept it in his office safe after she died, promising it would be mine someday. My vision blurred. She's not just stealing money. She's erasing everything. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a call from Dad. As I stared at his name on the screen, another text from Mira came through. She's going through your room, looking for something specific. The letter about the retirement account felt heavy in my pocket. Whatever Serafina was searching for, she was getting desperate. And desperate people made mistakes. I'm not answering, I said, declining Dad's call. Not yet. Alara. Jude's voice held a warning. I know what I'm doing. I hoped I sounded more confident than I felt. She wants to play family? Fine. Tell her I'll be at the holiday party. And then what? I thought about Mom's necklace, about the redirected payments, about Dad's exhausted face asking strangers if I was okay. Then I show everyone exactly who Serafina really is. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, starting with what's in that safe. As I left, my phone buzzed one final time. A text from an unknown number. You're just like your mother. She didn't know when to stop either. The threat was clear. But Serafina had made a crucial mistake. She'd mentioned Mom's medical bills, files I knew better than anyone. Now I just had to prove what I'd suspected all along. Those bills she claimed Dad was still paying didn't exist at all. The hospital records were gone. Not just misplaced or misfiled, completely erased from the system. I sat in my old volunteer coordinator's office, staring at the empty search results on her computer screen. "I'm sorry, Alara," Susan said, genuine concern in her voice. "The records from your Mother's Day should be here, but..." She gestured helplessly at the screen. It's like they never existed. My hands clenched in my lap. When was the last system update? 3 months ago. She checked her calendar. Right after that new privacy compliance initiative. The same time Serafina had started redirecting Dad's payments. The same time she'd begun talking about Mom's supposed ongoing medical bills. My phone buzzed, Dad calling again. 4th time today. I silenced it just as Myra's text came through. "Police just left our apartment. Someone reported suspicious activity. The fluorescent lights suddenly felt too bright, the office too small. Thanks, Susan. I need to go." Outside, the November wind cut through my jacket. I'd spent my entire weekend searching for proof, bank statements, insurance records, anything to show what Serafina was really doing with Dad's money. But she'd been thorough, erasing evidence faster than I could find it. My phone rang again. Jude this time. "She's here," he said without preamble. "At the cafe. With your dad." My heart stopped. "What?" "They're asking about you. About whether you've seemed unstable lately." She's showing him something on her phone, texts or emails, I think. Of course. All my desperate searches, my clumsy attempts at investigation. She'd been tracking everything, building her case while I built mine. "Don't go back to your apartment," Jude continued. "Mira says they took your laptop." "They what?" My voice cracked. All my screenshots, the bank statements, the letter about the retirement account, everything was on that laptop. "Your stepmom suggested it. Said she's worried about your mental health, that you've been obsessing over conspiracy theories about her." I leaned against a nearby wall, suddenly dizzy. "What did Dad say?" He looked convinced. "Alara, I think you need to." The call dropped. My phone screen went black, then lit up with a final message from an unknown number. "Check your bank account." With trembling fingers, I pulled up my banking app. My modest savings, my carefully budgeted checking account, both completely empty. A single transaction note appeared on each, account frozen pending investigation. My vision blurred. Without that money, I couldn't pay for next semester. Couldn't buy groceries. Couldn't even buy a bus ticket home if I wanted to. A new text from Mira. "They're saying you hacked your dad's accounts. That you're the one who's been stealing money. Serafina has proof." Of course she did. She'd probably been planning this since the day I discovered those transfers, waiting for me to make exactly these moves. Every attempt I'd made to expose her had only given her more ammunition. My phone rang one final time, Dad again. This time I answered. "Princess." His voice was soft, worried. "We need to talk about what's been going on." "Dad, whatever she told you. I've seen the evidence, sweetheart. The unauthorized account access, the obsessive behavior, the paranoid accusations." He sighed heavily. "I know losing your mom was hard, but this isn't the way to handle it. This isn't about Mom." But even as I said it, I realized that's exactly what Serafina wanted him to think, that I was just a grieving daughter. Lashing out at my stepmother, inventing conspiracies to cope with loss. "Come home," he said. "We'll get you help. There's a great therapist that Serafina knows." I hung up, sliding down the wall until I hit the sidewalk. She'd won. Everything I'd tried to prove had been turned against me, making me look exactly like what she'd claimed, an unstable, jealous kid who couldn't accept her new stepmother. My phone lit up with one final message from Serafina herself. "The holiday party is tomorrow night. Come home now, apologize publicly, and this all goes away. Or don't, and see what happens next. Your choice, dear." I stared at the message until the screen went dark, reflecting my own defeated face back at me. She'd taken everything. My money, my credibility, my relationship with Dad. Everything except my next move. The holiday party buzzed with forced laughter and clinking glasses. I stood in the entrance of Dad's renovated living room, wearing Mom's old black dress, watching Serafina hold court near the fireplace. Mom's necklace glittered at her throat. You came. Jude appeared beside me, looking uncomfortable in his borrowed suit. Are you sure about this? I clutched my phone tighter, feeling the weight of the email I'd just received. Did you bring what I asked for? He slipped a USB drive into my hand. Security footage from the cafe. Every conversation she's had there for the past month. Alara. Dad's voice boomed across the room. He hurried over, relief evident on his face. I'm so glad you decided to. Is that my necklace? The words came out sharper than I intended, cutting through the party chatter. The room quieted. Serafina touched the diamonds at her throat, her smile never wavering. Wyatt gave it to me, dear. A birthday present. Really? I pulled out my phone. That's not what the insurance company says. Her smile flickered. Dad looked between us, confusion creasing his forehead. What are you talking about? The necklace was reported stolen 3 months ago. I held up my phone showing the email, along with several other pieces of Mom's jewelry. The claim was filed under your name, Dad. But you didn't file it, did you? Serafina. Dad turned to his wife. What is she talking about? She's obviously confused again. Serafina stepped forward, reaching for Dad's arm. Remember what the therapist said about the therapist you invented? I pulled up another email. The one whose bills you've been charging to Dad's account? I called the office. They've never heard of him. The party guests had gone silent, watching the scene unfold. Serafina's perfectly manicured nails dug into Dad's sleeve. While we're talking about bills, I continued, let's discuss Mom's medical expenses. The ones you told Dad he was still paying off. I turned to Dad. Did you ever actually see those bills? They're handled automatically, he said slowly. Serafina set up the payments. Because there are no bills, Dad. I have proof from the hospital. Everything was paid in full before Mom died. The money's been going somewhere else. Enough. Serafina's voice cracked like a whip. Wyatt, she's clearly having another episode. We should. Should what? I stepped closer. Call the police? Like you did yesterday? Funny thing about that, they're very interested in the fraud complaints I filed this morning. Especially the part about you impersonating Dad to redirect his accounts. Dad pulled away from Serafina, his face ashen. What accounts? Show him, I told Jude. He connected the USB drive to the TV, pulling up security footage from the cafe. There was Serafina, clearly visible, using Dad's phone to access his banking app while he was in the bathroom. You don't understand, Serafina said, but her composure was cracking. I was protecting us, building a future. By stealing my college fund? By having my accounts frozen. The anger I'd been holding back finally broke through. By wearing my dead mother's jewelry while telling Dad I'm crazy? Wyatt, she turned to my father, desperate now. I can explain everything. The money's still there, Just what? Dad's voice was quiet, dangerous. Just stole from my daughter? Just lied about my late wife's medical bills? Just tried to convince me our child was mentally ill. The necklace at Serafina's throat suddenly looked like a noose. She reached for the clasp with trembling fingers. Keep it, I said coldly. The police will want it as evidence anyway. The sound of sirens filtered through the party's stunned silence. Serafina's face went pale. I did everything for us, she whispered, but she wasn't looking at Dad anymore. She was looking at me. You have no idea what it's like to have nothing. To need to protect yourself. You're right, I said. I don't know what that's like. But I know what it's like to lose everything. And now, so will you. The police entered as Serafina sank into a chair, her perfect world crumbling around her. Dad moved to stand beside me, his hand finding mine for the first time in years. The necklace caught the light one last time as they led her away, diamonds sparkling like tears. Spring came early that year. I sat in Dad's garden, watching him struggle with Mom's old rose bushes. 3 months had passed since Serafina's arrest, but some wounds were still fresh. You're doing it wrong, I said, moving to help him with the pruning shears. Mom always cut at an angle, remember? He handed me the tools without argument. We worked in comfortable silence until his phone buzzed. Another email from Serafina's lawyers. They're offering a plea deal, he said, not looking up from the roses. She'll return everything she took, plus interest. In exchange for what? We dropped the additional fraud charges. Let her serve a shorter sentence. He pulled a worn envelope from his pocket. She wrote you a letter. I stared at the envelope, dirt under my fingernails, remembering how Serafina's perfectly manicured hands had once held Mom's necklace. Did you read it? No. But her lawyer mentioned. He hesitated. She grew up in foster care, aged out of the system with nothing. Apparently, she's been running similar schemes for years, always targeting widowers with college-aged kids. The letter felt heavier than paper should. That doesn't make it okay. No, it doesn't. Dad touched one of Mom's roses. But it might help explain some things. My phone chimed an email notification. I'd been getting a lot of those lately, ever since the story broke. Local newspapers loved the drama. Wealthy widow's daughter exposes stepmother's fraud ring. The university had even featured me in their alumni newsletter after I won the emergency scholarship. Jude asked me out. I said suddenly, surprising myself. For coffee. Somewhere that isn't the cafe. Dad smiled, a real smile, like the ones from before. Smart boy. Took him long enough. I haven't said yes yet. But you will. He gestured at the garden. You're your mother's daughter. You never could resist fixing broken things. I looked down at Serafina's letter, still unopened. Some things can't be fixed, Dad. No, he agreed. But they can be understood. Sometimes that's enough. Later that evening, I sat in my new apartment, a small studio I could afford with my reinstated college fund and cafe wages, and finally opened the letter. Serafina's elegant handwriting filled the page. Dear Alara, you remind me so much of myself at your age. The determination. The need to protect what's yours. I saw it the moment we met, and it terrified me. I thought I could control you the way I controlled everything else in my life. I was wrong. I won't ask for forgiveness. What I did to you, to your father, to the memory of your mother, it's unforgivable. But I want you to know that the fear never goes away. The fear of losing everything, of returning to nothing. I thought having money would fix it. I was wrong about that too. You're stronger than I ever was. You fought for your family instead of trying to replace it. Keep fighting. Yes. I folded the letter carefully and reached for my phone. Jude's number was still up on the screen, waiting for my response about coffee. Hey, I typed. Tomorrow works. But not at our cafe. I know a better place. The garden center down the street had a small coffee shop. Mom used to take me there when I was little, letting me pick out seeds for our section of the garden. Dad had forgotten about it over the years, but I hadn't. Maybe it was time to plant something new. My phone buzzed again, Mira this time, asking if I was still coming to her graduation party next week. Then another text from Dad, found Mom's old gardening journal. Want to help me restart her butterfly garden? I looked around my small apartment, at the potted plants on every windowsill, at the framed photo of Mom and me in her garden, at the future I was finally building for myself. Yes, I replied to both messages. Some things couldn't be fixed, but others could grow back stronger if you knew how to tend them. Mom had taught me that, long before Serafina tried to make me forget. I placed the letter in my desk drawer, next to the scholarship certificate and the cafe's security footage. Reminders, not of what I'd lost, but of what I'd fought to keep. Tomorrow, I'd plant roses with Dad. But tonight, I had some seeds of my own to sow.
The manila envelope sat on my doorstep like a ticking bomb. No return address, just my name, Ivy, written in careful block letters. I almost stepped over it, my mind still focused on the morning's client sessions at the gym, but something made me pause. My name is Ivy, and 3 years ago I thought I had everything figured out. Successful fitness trainer, loving husband, beautiful son, and a life that looked perfect on Instagram. Funny how one envelope can shatter all that. I picked it up, noting its weight, the way it bulged slightly in the middle. Inside my kitchen, I dropped my gym bag and protein shake, sliding my finger under the flap. Photos spilled onto my granite countertop like autumn leaves, each one more devastating than the last. Julie and my husband with another woman. Different locations, different outfits, same intimate gestures. His hand on her lower back at a restaurant I didn't recognize. Her head thrown back in laughter as they walked through a park. The final photo showed them entering a hotel, his wedding ring conspicuously absent. My phone buzzed. Julian's face lit up my screen. "Coming home late tonight, babe." Client dinner. I stared at his message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. 3 years of marriage, and I'd never once doubted him. Even when his mother Edith insisted we move into the family home to save money, even when his sister Vivian made snide comments about my common background, I trusted Julian completely. "No problem," I typed back. "Noah and I will have dinner without you." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Thanks for understanding. Love you." I set my phone face down and walked to our son's room. Noah was napping, his little chest rising and falling peacefully. 3, he was too young to understand what these photos meant, too innocent to know his father might be destroying our family. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number this time. "There's more you need to know. Meet me at Riverside Coffee tomorrow at 10 a.m. Come alone." I should have been angry, should have been screaming or crying. Instead, I felt oddly calm, like I was watching someone else's life implode. I picked up the photos, studying them more carefully. The woman was beautiful in an obvious way, exactly the type Julian's mother would approve of. Unlike me, with my athletic build and practical ponytail. The front door opened and I heard Edith's voice calling out, "Ivy? Where are you? The gardener needs direction about the rose bushes." I quickly slid the photos back into the envelope and tucked it into my gym bag. "Coming," I called back, my voice steadier than I expected. Edith stood in the foyer, perfectly coiffed as always. "Really, dear, you should change out of those gym clothes before Noah wakes up. A mother should look presentable." "Of course," I said, forcing a smile. "I'll go change right now." As I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, I heard her on the phone. "Yes, Vivian, she's finally home." "No, Julian isn't here yet." "Yes, I'll tell him about dinner on Sunday." I closed my bedroom door and leaned against it, letting out a long breath. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'd meet my mysterious informant. Tomorrow, I'd find out just how deep this betrayal went. But tonight I'd play my part. I'd change into something presentable, smile through dinner with my mother-in-law, and tuck my son into bed. I'd kiss Julian when he came home, tasting his lies on his lips. Because if there's one thing being a fitness trainer has taught me, it's that the best results require patience, planning, and perfect form. And whatever was coming next, I intended to execute it flawlessly. Riverside Coffee was busier than I expected for a Tuesday morning. I dropped Noah at daycare early, telling myself it was just another normal day. Except normal days don't usually involve meeting mysterious strangers about your cheating husband. I spotted her immediately, the woman from the photos. She sat in a corner booth, stirring her coffee with mechanical precision. My stomach clenched, but I forced myself forward, sliding into the seat across from her. "I'm Caroline," she said, not looking up. "Julian's ex-fiancé." The word hit me like a slap. Julian had never mentioned being engaged before. Ex-fiancé? 3 years ago. Right before he met you, actually. She finally met my eyes. Edith arranged the whole thing. Old money, proper breeding, everything she wanted for her precious son. I thought about the photos. "But you're still seeing him." "No." Caroline's laugh was bitter. "Those photos are from 3 years ago, right before our wedding. I found out he was seeing you, confronted him, and he called everything off." She pulled out her phone, showing me the timestamp metadata on the photos. Edith never forgave either of us, him for choosing you, me for not fighting harder to keep him. My relief about the photos lasted exactly 3 seconds before the implications sank in. Why show me now? Because yesterday I overheard something at the country club. Edith and Vivian were talking about Julian's investment opportunity. "They're planning to drain your savings, Ivy." All of it. The pieces started falling into place. Julian's recent hints about a can't-miss business venture, his mother's sudden interest in my career success, the way Vivian kept bringing up my impressive client list at family dinners. How much do they think I have? Enough to cover Julian's gambling debts. That's what ended our engagement. I discovered he'd lost almost everything. The family fortune, his trust fund, all of it. Caroline's hands trembled slightly. Edith covered it up, but she can't keep doing it. They need fresh money. My phone buzzed. Julian, did you get a chance to look at those investment papers I left on your desk? I stared at the message, remembering the thick folder he'd given me yesterday. I hadn't opened it yet, too distracted by the photos. There's more, Caroline said quietly. The house, it's not actually in Julian's name. Edith still owns everything. If you sign those papers, you'll be responsible for all their debts, but you'll have no legal claim to anything. The coffee shop door chimed. Vivian walked in, her designer handbag swinging. She froze when she saw us, her perfectly painted smile cracking. Ivy? What a surprise! Her voice carried across the cafe. And Caroline? How interesting. Caroline stood quickly. Think about what I said, she murmured, then brushed past Vivian without acknowledgement. Vivian slid into the vacant seat, her expression concerned. You shouldn't trust anything that woman says. She's been bitter ever since Julian chose you. Did he choose me? I asked quietly. Or did he just need someone with a steady income? Something flickered in Vivian's eyes, surprise, maybe even respect. You're smarter than you look. She leaned forward. Listen, whatever Caroline told you, just remember family comes first. Julian needs you right now. We all do. I thought about Noah, about the life I wanted for him. Yes, I said slowly. Family does come first. Vivian's smile returned, triumphant. She didn't notice my hands under the table, sending a quick text to my bank. Freeze all accounts immediately. Possible fraud. I should go, I said, standing. I have clients waiting. Of course. Vivian's voice was honey-sweet. Oh, and don't forget about those investment papers. Julian's really counting on your support. I walked out of the coffee shop, my mind racing. They thought they had me cornered, this family of wolves in designer clothing. But they'd forgotten something crucial. I hadn't survived as a female fitness trainer in a male-dominated industry by being naive. The game they wanted to play? I could play it better. And I had something they didn't, nothing left to lose. That evening, I sat at my desk, staring at Julian's investment papers while Noah played with his blocks nearby. The documents looked legitimate enough, glossy brochures for a luxury resort development, projected returns that seemed too good to be true. 'Cause they were. My laptop pinged with an email from my bank. Count frozen as requested. I'd need to visit in person to make any changes. Perfect. Mommy, look. Noah held up his tower of blocks, beaming. It's tall like Daddy. The front door opened and Julian's footsteps echoed through the hall. I quickly slid the papers into my desk drawer. There's my boy. Julian swept Noah up, making airplane noises. He looked at me, his smile faltering slightly. Did you get a chance to look at those papers? Actually, I tried to transfer the money, but there seems to be an issue with the bank. I watched his face carefully. They need me to come in person. Something flickered in his eyes. Panic? I can go with you tomorrow. Make sure everything goes smoothly. That won't be necessary. I stood up, stretching. I already made an appointment. Vivian offered to watch Noah. Julian set our son down, his movements suddenly precise. You saw Vivian today? At Riverside Coffee. Strange coincidence, running into her there. Temperature in the room seemed to drop. Julian's phone buzzed, probably Vivian warning him. He glanced at it but didn't answer. Ivy, about Caroline. Your ex-fiancé? The one you never mentioned? I kept my voice light, conscious of Noah playing nearby. The one your mother still compares me to at every family dinner? It wasn't serious. He stepped closer, reaching for my hand. You know you're the only one who matters to me. You and Noah. His touch felt different now, knowing what I knew. Like a snake's scales, smooth but cold. Noah, sweetie, I called out. Time to get ready for bed. But Daddy just got home. It's okay, champ, Julian said. I'll read you an extra long story tomorrow. As I tucked Noah in, Julian's phone buzzed again. And again. I heard him in the hallway, his voice low but urgent. Mother, now isn't a good time. When I came back downstairs, Edith was in our living room, impeccably dressed despite the late hour. Ivy, dear. We need to talk about these investment papers. Mother, Julian warned. No, Julian. This affects all of us. Edith's smile was razor sharp. Ivy needs to understand what family means. Family? I laughed, surprising all of us. Like how you covered up Julian's gambling debts. Or how you're trying to trap me into taking responsibility for them. Julian went pale. Edith's smile didn't waver, but her hands tightened on her designer purse. Caroline told you. It wasn't a question. That spiteful girl never could keep her mouth shut. She didn't have to tell me everything. I moved to my desk, pulled out the investment papers. I had these reviewed by a lawyer this afternoon. Interesting structure, all the liability, none of the ownership. Very clever. You went to a lawyer? Julian's voice cracked. I also spoke to the bank. I turned to Edith. Did you know Julian's been transferring money from our joint account to cover his gambling? $5,000 last week alone. Edith's composure slipped just for a moment. She turned to Julian. You're still gambling? The look on Julian's face, caught between his mother and his wife, between his addiction and his lies, almost made me pity him. Almost. I can explain, he started, but his phone buzzed again. This time, I was close enough to see the screen. Not Vivian. Not his mother. A message from Amanda with a heart emoji. Missing you already. Last night was amazing. The silence that followed was deafening. I think, I said quietly, you both should leave. Ivy, Julian reached for me. Now. My voice didn't shake. Before I wake up Noah and tell him exactly why his father is leaving. They left, Edith's heels clicking on the hardwood, Julian's shoulders slumped in defeat. I locked the door behind them, then sat on the stairs, listening to Noah's soft breathing from upstairs. Tomorrow I'd go to the bank. Tomorrow I'd start untangling myself from their web of lies. But tonight I allowed myself one moment of pure, clarifying rage. They wanted to play games with my life, my money, my son's future? Fine. Game on. The bank manager's expression said everything before she even opened my account records. Mrs. Harrison, there seems to be a problem. I already knew what she'd found. I'd spent all night reviewing our finances, tracking Julian's systematic drain of our accounts. But hearing the numbers out loud made my hands shake. The transfers started small, she explained, sliding papers across her desk. 2,000 here, 5,000 there. But last month alone, she pointed to a figure that made my stomach turn. $50,000. Gone. I'd like to close all joint accounts, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, and open new ones in my name only. As she processed the paperwork, my phone lit up with texts from Julian. Where are you? Mother's worried. Please come home. We can fix this. The last one made me laugh, a sharp, bitter sound that startled the bank manager. Sorry, I said. Just remembered something funny. Like how Julian had convinced me to put my fitness business earnings into our joint account. For tax purposes, he'd said. For our future. Walking out of the bank, I felt lighter. Dangerous. Free. I had an appointment with my lawyer next, but first I needed to pick up Noah from Ivy. Grant, Vivian's husband, stood by my car. In 3 years of family dinners and forced holidays, he'd barely spoken 10 words to me. Now here he was, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. They sent you to talk to me? No. He glanced around the parking lot. They don't know I'm here. Listen, there's something you need to see. He held out a USB drive. Financial records. The real ones. From before you married Julian. I stared at the small device. Why are you helping me? Because Vivian. He swallowed hard. She's pregnant. And I won't let my child grow up in this mess. I took the drive, watching him walk away. At my lawyer's office, the documents told a story that made my blood run cold. The gambling debts weren't just Julian's. The entire family was drowning in them, using new loans to pay off old ones, creating a pyramid scheme of desperation. My phone buzzed again. Edith this time. Family dinner tonight. Non-negotiable. Perfect. I drove home, finding Julian waiting in the driveway. He looked terrible, unshaven, shirt wrinkled. Good. Where's Noah? I asked before he could speak. Mother has him. Ivy, please let me explain about Amanda. You can explain at dinner. I walked past him into the house. I'm sure your mother would love to hear about her too. He grabbed my arm. Don't. Mother can't handle any more stress right now. Can't handle the truth, you mean? I pulled away. Like how you're still gambling. Or how you've been stealing from me. Borrowing, he corrected quickly. I was going to pay it back. The resort development is a scam. I turned to face him. Just like our marriage. Something dark crossed his face. You don't mean that. Actually, I do. I headed upstairs to change. See you at dinner, honey. In our bedroom, I packed a small bag, essential documents, some clothes for Noah and me, the USB drive. Just in case. Then I dressed carefully, choosing the red dress Edith always said was too bold for family occasions. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Grant. Be careful tonight. Vivian's been making calls. I smiled at my reflection, applying red lipstick with steady hands. They thought they had me cornered, the troublesome wife who needed to be managed, controlled, bled dry. They didn't realize they'd created their own worst nightmare, a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Tonight's dinner would be interesting. I had the truth, the evidence, and most importantly, I had their precious family reputation in my hands. Let them try to stop me. Edith's dining room felt like a stage set, crystal glasses catching the chandelier light, silver gleaming on starched white linen. Noah sat between Vivian and Edith, happily munching on the chicken nuggets they'd specially ordered for him. My son, the only person they bothered to accommodate. More wine, dear. Edith's smile was razor-sharp as she lifted the bottle. No, thank you. I kept my glass full but untouched. I need a clear head for my morning clients. Ah, yes, your little exercise classes. She set the bottle down with a precise clink. Though I heard you've been doing more than just teaching lately. Julian stiffened beside me. I smiled. News travels fast. Grant mentioned something about a bank visit? Vivian's voice dripped concern. Is everything all right? Perfectly fine. I cut into my untouched steak. Just some routine account maintenance. Speaking of maintenance, Julian, did you tell your mother about Amanda? The silence was absolute. Even Noah looked up, sensing the tension. Amanda. Edith's knuckles whitened around her fork. Julian's new investment partner. I took a deliberate sip of water. They've been working very closely together. Noah, sweetie, Vivian stood quickly. Let's go watch your favorite show in the den. But I want to stay with Mommy. Go on, baby, I said softly. Just for a little while. The moment Noah left, Edith's facade cracked. What game are you playing, Ivy? Game? I pulled out my phone, sliding it across the table. Like the game where Julian empties our accounts for his gambling? Or the one where you try to trap me into taking on the family's debts? You ungrateful, Vivian started, but Grant caught her arm. Let her speak, he said quietly. I stood, walking to the antique sideboard where Edith kept her precious family photos. 3 years I've tried to fit into this family. 3 years of criticism, manipulation, and lies. I picked up a frame Julian and me on our wedding day. But you know what's funny? You were so busy trying to control me, you never noticed I was watching too. Ivy, please, Julian reached for me. Whatever you think you know. I know everything. I set the photo down hard enough to crack the glass. The gambling, the affairs, the fraud. Every loan, every scheme, every lie. You have no proof, Edith said, but her voice wavered. I laughed. Check your email. All of you. I sent quite an interesting package about an hour ago. Bank records, photos, everything. A copy to the police too, just in case. You wouldn't dare. Vivian's face was pale. Think about Noah. I am thinking about Noah. My voice finally broke. I'm thinking about how he deserves better than growing up in this poison. Better than watching his father gamble away his future while his grandmother orchestrates cover-ups. Mother, Julian's voice was desperate. Tell her it's not true. But Edith just sat there, her perfect posture finally crumbling. How did you get those records? Does it matter? I walked to the door. Noah. Time to go home, baby. You can't take him. Julian stood. This is his home. Actually, I pulled out another paper from my bag, according to our new custody agreement filed this afternoon. I can. Emergency temporary custody, granted due to evidence of financial fraud and unsafe living conditions. Noah came running in, Grant following with his backpack. Our eyes met briefly, his apologetic, mine grateful. But where will you go? Vivian stammered. Away from here. I took Noah's hand. Oh, and Julian? Amanda called. Apparently, she's pregnant too. Congratulations. The last thing I saw as we walked out was Edith's face crumpling, Vivian's hand flying to her own pregnant belly, and Julian, my charming, lying husband, finally running out of masks to wear. In the car, Noah yawned. Mommy, why didn't we finish dinner? Because sometimes, baby, I started the engine, watching the grand house shrink in my rearview mirror. Leaving the table is the healthiest choice you can make. My phone started buzzing with their calls and messages, but I didn't answer. They'd taken enough of my time, my money, my trust. But they wouldn't take another second of my future. Or my son's. 3 weeks into our new life, I woke to banging on my apartment door. Noah stirred in the makeshift bed beside me. We were still sleeping in the living room, waiting for furniture to arrive. Police. Open up. My heart stopped. Through the peephole, I saw 2 officers and Julian, his face a mask of concern. Perfect. Officers, I opened the door, keeping the chain on. Is something wrong? Ma'am, we have reports of child endangerment. We need to check on Noah's welfare. Behind them, Julian's concerned facade cracked into a slight smirk. Of course. When manipulation failed, he'd try force. I let them in, watching as they took in our sparse living room, the air mattresses, the takeout containers, Noah's toys scattered across the floor. It looked bad, I knew that. Exactly as Julian had planned. Noah, baby, come say hi to the officers. My son peeked out from behind me, thumb in mouth, a habit he'd picked up since we left. Daddy. Hey, champ. Julian stepped forward, but I blocked his path. My lawyer, I said to the officers, pulling out my phone. I need to call her. Of course, one officer nodded, while his partner spoke quietly into his radio. Julian moved closer, his voice low. You really think anyone will believe you over me? A single mother, living like this? He gestured at our temporary setup. Well, I have a proper home, family support, stability. You mean the stability of gambling debts? Or the family support of lies and fraud? Prove it. His smile was cold. Those records you threatened us with? Inadmissible in court. Grant made sure of that before he handed them over. My stomach dropped. Grant's help had been too convenient, too perfect. Another manipulation. The officers finished their inspection, making notes about the living conditions. I could see it through their eyes, the missing furniture, the makeshift beds, the chaos of a hasty move. All while Julian stood there in his perfect suit, radiating concern and stability. "Mrs. Harrison," the older officer said, "we'll need you to come down to the station. There are some questions." A knock interrupted him. Through the still open door walked Caroline, carrying a stack of files. "Sorry I'm late," she said, all business. "I'm Mrs. Harrison's attorney, and I believe you officers will find these interesting." She handed them each a folder. Certified bank records showing Mr. Harrison's gambling losses. Court admissible evidence of financial fraud. And she smiled at Julian. DNA test results proving Mr. Harrison's paternity of my unborn child. Julian's face went ash white. "My client," Caroline continued, "has full documentation of her income, rental agreement, and Noah's new school registration. The temporary living conditions are just that, temporary. The furniture arrives tomorrow." The officers reviewed the documents, their expressions shifting. Julian started to speak, but Caroline cut him off. "Oh, and one more thing." She pulled out her phone, playing a recording of Julian's voice. "Those records you threatened us with? Inadmissible in court. Grant made sure of that." "You recorded me?" Julian sputtered. "No," I said quietly. "I did. Just now. Funny how people reveal themselves when they think they've won." The officers exchanged looks. "Mr. Harrison, we'll need you to come with us. Making false reports is a serious offense." As they led Julian out, Caroline turned to me. "You okay?" I looked around our sparse apartment, at Noah playing quietly with his toys, unaware of how close we'd come to losing everything. "Why help me?" I asked. "After everything." "Because 3 years ago I was you. Except I didn't fight back." She touched her pregnant belly. "This time I am." After they left, I sat beside Noah, watching him stack blocks into wobbly towers. My phone buzzed with a text from Grant. "I'm sorry. They threatened Vivian, the baby." I had to. Another buzz, Edith. "This isn't over." She was right. It wasn't over. But for the first time since this started, I wasn't afraid. They'd thrown everything they had at me, and I was still standing. Tomorrow, the furniture would arrive. Tomorrow, we'd start building our new life for real. But tonight, watching Noah play in our imperfect temporary home, I realized something important. Sometimes rock bottom has a foundation you can build on. The Harrison family mansion loomed before me, its windows dark except for Edith's study. 6 months had passed since that night with the police, and now I was back, not as Julian's wife or Edith's daughter-in-law, but as their creditor. I adjusted my blazer, checking that the USB drive was still in my pocket. Noah was safe with Caroline, probably playing with her newborn daughter. The thought gave me strength as I rang the doorbell. Grant opened it, looking haunted. "They're all in the study. How convenient." I stepped past him. "Everyone I need to see, all in one place." The study door was ajar, voices drifting out. Edith's sharp tone, Julian's pleading, Vivian's barely contained hysteria. "We can't sell the house," Edith was saying. "It's been in the family for generations." I pushed the door open. "Actually, you can. And you will." They froze like actors in a tableau, Edith behind her massive desk, Julian pacing, Vivian perched on the leather sofa, her pregnancy now obvious. "You have no right to be here," Edith started, but I cut her off. "I have every right." I placed a folder on her desk. "As the majority holder of your debt." Julian stopped pacing. "What?" "It's amazing what you can buy when a family's desperate. I've spent the last 6 months acquiring your loans, your mortgages, everything." I smiled. "You wanted my money? Now you have my attention." You vindictive little, Vivian stood, but Grant caught her arm. Let her speak, he said quietly. Oh, now you want to hear me? I pulled out the USB drive. Funny, because I've been listening to all of you for years. Every criticism, every manipulation, every lie. I turned to Julian, including your conversations with Amanda about how to bleed me dry. I never, Julian started. Save it. I connected the drive to Edith's computer. Everything's here, the gambling, the fraud, the conspiracies. But that's not why I'm here. Edith's face had gone pale as she scanned the files. What do you want? Simple. Sign over the house and assets to my holding company and I'll restructure your debt. You can stay here as tenants. Under my terms. You can't be serious, Vivian laughed, but it sounded hollow. Or, I continued, I can call in all the loans tomorrow. Your choice. Julian moved toward me, his charm switching on like a light. Ivy, sweetheart, we can talk about this. Don't. My voice cracked like a whip. 3 years, Julian. 3 years I tried to be part of this family. And you know what I learned? The only thing you people understand is power. You're just like us, Edith said softly. Using money to control people. No. I met her eyes. I'm protecting my son from becoming like you. Noah will grow up knowing his worth isn't measured by his bank account or family name. And what about my grandchild? Vivian's hand rested on her belly. Would you leave them homeless? Sign the papers and no one has to leave. But things will change. I pulled out a pen. Starting with how you treat people. Silence fell. I could see them calculating just as they'd calculated how to use me years ago. Finally, Edith reached for the pen. Mother, no. Julian protested. Enough, Julian. Edith's hand shook as she signed. We did this. All of us. One by one they signed, Vivian with tears, Julian with rage, Grant with what looked like relief. It's done, I said, collecting the papers. The lawyers will contact you about the new arrangements. As I turned to leave, Edith spoke again. Was it worth it? This revenge. I paused at the door. This isn't revenge, Edith. It's protection from yourselves. I looked at each of them. Maybe now you'll learn what family really means. Walking out, I heard Vivian start to cry, Julian cursing, Edith's heavy silence. But for the first time since I'd entered their lives, I felt clean. Free. My phone buzzed, a photo from Caroline of Noah playing with her daughter, both laughing. This was what mattered. Not revenge, not power, but building something better for the next generation. Let the Harrisons keep their mansion. I had everything I needed. 1 year later, I stood in front of the Harrison mansion, watching the movers carry out Edith's antiques. Noah played on the front lawn, his laughter mixing with the sound of another child, Vivian's daughter, Emma, crawling after him on a blanket while Grant watched them both. Everything's packed, Caroline appeared beside me, her own daughter strapped to her chest. Edith's waiting in the study. I nodded, taking a deep breath. This wasn't the ending I'd imagined when I'd first walked through these doors as Julian's bride, but maybe it was the one we all needed. The study looked smaller now, its shelves empty. Edith sat at her desk. No, my desk now, writing something. The last of the paperwork? I asked. She looked up, her face softer than I remembered. A letter. For Noah. She held it out. For when he's older. To explain. Everything. I took it, noting how her hands trembled. I heard Julian's doing better. The gambling therapy. 6 months sober. A ghost of pride crossed her face. Amanda's baby helped. Gave him something to fight for. Like Noah did for me. Silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Edith stood, smoothing her skirt with dignified precision. I never told you why I was so hard on you, she said quietly. I saw myself in you. The determination, the independence. I had that once before I let this house, this name, become everything. She gestured around the study. I thought I was protecting Julian from my mistakes. Instead, I turned him into his father. And now, she smiled sadly. Now I'm moving into a 2-bedroom condo, learning to live without walls of photographs, pretending we were perfect. She moved to the window, watching Noah and Emma play. Sometimes losing everything shows you what you actually had. A noise at the door made us turn. Vivian stood there, Emma's diaper bag over her shoulder. "The movers need the keys," she said, then hesitated. We're still on for Sunday?" Noah seemed excited about the playground. "As long as you remember the rules," I said firmly. "No manipulation, no games, no comparing the children." Vivian recited, then added softly, "Just family." Whatever that means now. I handed Edith the study keys. She took them, then surprised me by pulling out an old photograph from her purse. "Found this while packing," she said. Showed a young woman in workout clothes standing proudly in front of a small gym. Me at your age. Before I decided status mattered more than strength. I studied the woman in the photo, seeing echoes of myself, of Vivian, even of Caroline. All of us fighting for something we thought we needed, only to find different battles worth winning. "Keep it," Edith said. "Remind Noah that his grandmother wasn't always a nightmare mother-in-law." She actually laughed, a real laugh, not the polished society chuckle I'd grown to hate. "Something like that." Outside, Noah's voice carried through the window. "Mommy!" Emma did it. "She's walking." We rushed to watch as Vivian's daughter took wobbly steps toward Noah, Grant filming with his phone while Caroline cheered. A moment of pure joy, untainted by expectations or facades. "You did the right thing," Edith said quietly. "Breaking our cycle, making us face ourselves." "It wasn't about breaking anything," I replied, watching Noah help Emma balance. "It was about building something better." As Edith left for the last time, I opened her letter to Noah. The final lines caught my eye. "Your mother taught us that true strength isn't in what you own or control, but in knowing when to let go. Remember that, and remember that family, real family, is built on love, not fear. Even if it takes some of us a lifetime to learn the difference." I folded the letter, tucking it away for Noah's future. Outside, my son was teaching Emma to play patty cake, their laughter echoing through the empty house. Not every broken thing needs to be fixed, I realized. Sometimes it just needs to be rebuilt, differently but stronger. And sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, surrounded by the truth of who you are. Call came at 2:47 a.m., jolting me from a deep sleep. My sister's ringtone, the one I'd specifically set to ignore, kept chiming persistently. "For 6 rings," I finally answered, if only to stop the noise. "What is it, Celeste?" Through broken sobs, my sister's voice crackled over the line. "Nora, I need help. Please. We have nowhere else to go. My name is Nora, and I should have let that call go to voicemail. 20 years of cleaning up Celeste's messes had taught me better, but old habits die hard when it comes to family." "What do you mean we?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "The boys and me. We left Grant. Things got complicated. Can we stay with you? Just for a few days until I figure things out?" I sat up in bed, switching on my bedside lamp. The digital clock's red numbers seemed to mock me as I contemplated my response. My perfectly ordered life was about to be disrupted again. "Celeste, I have patients early tomorrow. I can't just..." "Please," she cut in, her voice breaking. "Oliver and Lucas are sleeping in the car. We've been driving for hours. That got my attention." "You're in your car? Where exactly?" "Your driveway." I walked to my window and pulled back the curtain. Sure enough, there was Celeste's beat-up Honda Civic parked crooked across my driveway. In the dim streetlight, I could make out 2 small shapes huddled in the back seat. Jesus Christ, Celeste. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. Come inside before someone calls the police. 5 minutes later, I stood in my kitchen watching my sister herd her exhausted sons through the door. Oliver, 10 years old and already showing signs of his mother's dramatic flair, clutched a ratty backpack to his chest. 7-year-old Lucas trailing behind him, thumb firmly planted in his mouth, a habit I thought he'd broken years ago. Celeste looked worse than I'd ever seen her, and that was saying something. Her normally perfect makeup was smeared, dark circles under her eyes making her look haunted. She'd lost weight since I'd last seen her at Mom's funeral 3 months ago. The guest room is made up, I said, keeping my voice low. The boys can take the pull-out couch in my office. Thank you, Celeste whispered, but wouldn't meet my eyes. That's when I knew this wasn't just another of her typical crises. Something was seriously wrong. I helped get the boys settled, noting how they had barely any belongings with them. Oliver kept watching his mother with worried eyes, while Lucas fell asleep almost instantly on the couch. Back in the kitchen, I found Celeste sitting at my counter, staring into space. Want to tell me what's really going on? She jumped slightly, as if she'd forgotten I was there. It's complicated. It always is with you. I started making tea chamomile, the kind our mother used to make when we were upset. Does Grant know where you are? No. She accepted the mug with trembling hands. And he can't find out. Promise me, Nora. What did you do? Why do you assume I did something? Her defensive tone was all too familiar. Maybe he's the one who. Because I know you, Celeste. And because you're hiding something. I can see it in your face. She took a shaky sip of tea, then set the mug down carefully. You're right. There's something I haven't told anyone. Not even Grant. But I can't. Not tonight. Please, can we just sleep? I wanted to push harder, to demand answers. But looking at her now, I saw something I'd never seen in my little sister before. Genuine fear. Fine. But tomorrow we talk. Really talk. No more games, no more half-truths. Deal. She nodded, relief flooding her features. As I watched her disappear into the guest room, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just invited chaos back into my life. What I didn't know then was that this night would change everything, not just for Celeste and her boys, but for all of us. And that the revenge my sister was running from would eventually find its way to my doorstep. Morning arrived with the subtle chaos I'd been dreading. I found Oliver and Lucas sprawled across my living room floor, surrounded by scattered Lego pieces, while cartoons blared from the TV at a volume that made my teeth ache. Boys, I called out, lowering the volume, breakfast in 5 minutes. And please pick up these toys before someone steps on them. Neither child moved. Oliver kept building his creation while Lucas continued watching the screen, thumb firmly planted in his mouth. The scene was so different from my usual quiet mornings with Ava, who was always organized and ready for school without prompting. Speaking of Ava, my daughter appeared in the kitchen doorway, her face a mix of confusion and annoyance. Mom, why is Aunt Celeste sleeping in our guest room? It's complicated, honey. Family emergency. I started cracking eggs into a bowl, trying to maintain some semblance of our normal routine. Where is your aunt now? Still sleeping. Like her kids should be, instead of trashing our living room at 7 in the morning. I shot her a warning look. Ava. What? I'm just saying what you're thinking. She grabbed her lunch from the fridge. I've got debate club after school, remember? Don't wait up. The front door closed behind her with more force than necessary. I couldn't blame her. This was exactly the kind of disruption I'd always protected my kids from. Kind that seemed to follow Celeste everywhere. Something smells amazing. Celeste appeared in the doorway, looking marginally better than last night but still wearing yesterday's clothes. Boys, come eat breakfast. Neither child moved. Oliver. Lucas. Now, please. Still nothing. I watched as she shrugged it off, helping herself to coffee. The old familiar irritation bubbled up, the same feeling I'd had watching our mother clean up Celeste's messes, make excuses for her behavior, praise her potential while ignoring her actions. "They need structure," I said, keeping my voice neutral as I plated the eggs. "Consistent consequences. They're just tired from the drive. And traumatized, probably." Celeste sipped her coffee. "Speaking of which, I need to figure out getting them enrolled in school here." I nearly dropped the spatula. "Here? I thought this was temporary." "Well," she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Grant knows all our usual spots. And the boys love it here with their favorite aunt, don't you, sweeties?" Oliver finally looked up. "Dad's going to find us anyway." "He always does." The resignation in his voice made my stomach clench. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from my receptionist. "First patient arrived early. Everything okay?" "I have to get to work," I said, grabbing my keys. "We'll talk about school and everything else tonight. But Celeste, you need to." I know. Clean up, keep the boys quiet, stay out of sight." I remember the rules from last time. 3 years ago, when she'd shown up after totaling Grant's car and emptying their joint account. She'd stayed 2 weeks before disappearing without a word, leaving me to explain to a heartbroken Oliver why his mother had gone. "There won't be a this time if you pull that again," I said quietly, so the boys couldn't hear. "I mean it, Celeste. No more games." She nodded, but something in her expression made me uneasy. I'd seen that look before, right before she'd forged Mom's signature on college withdrawal papers, right before she'd borrowed my car and disappeared for a month, right before she'd announced her pregnancy at my wedding reception. As I drove to work, my mind kept circling back to Oliver's words about Grant. There was something off about this whole situation. Celeste had run from Grant before, but never like this, never in the middle of the night, never with such fear in her eyes. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but the message notification made my blood run cold. "Dr. Caldwell, this is Detective Martinez. We need to speak with you regarding your sister's whereabouts. Please call back as soon as possible." I gripped the steering wheel tighter, wondering what exactly I'd invited into my home this time. I returned home that evening to find my house eerily quiet. Too quiet. The boys' Legos were still scattered across the floor, half-eaten sandwiches abandoned on the coffee table. Celeste's purse lay open on the kitchen counter, her phone next to it. Detective Martinez's voicemail had haunted me all day. I called back during lunch, but only reached his voicemail. Now, standing in my silent house, that uneasy feeling returned tenfold. "Celeste," I called out, moving toward the guest room. "Boys." A muffled sob from upstairs stopped me. Following the sound, I found Oliver huddled in my home office closet, clutching something to his chest. "Oliver? Where's your mom?" He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "She said not to tell." My heart dropped. "Tell what?" Instead of answering, he held out what he'd been holding, a manila envelope, stuffed with what looked like hundreds of thousands in cash. "I found it in Mom's bag," he whispered. "She saw me looking and got really mad. Then she took Lucas to get ice cream. That was hours ago." I sat down next to him, my legs suddenly weak. "How long ago exactly?" "After lunch. She said they'd be right back, but..." He wiped his nose with his sleeve. "Dad always says Mom takes things that aren't hers. Is that what this is?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. "Detective Martinez." "Dr. Caldwell," his voice was grave. "We need to discuss the incident at Riverside Community Bank yesterday. Your sister was identified on security footage during an armed robbery. A security guard was shot." The room spun. I gripped the doorframe, trying to steady myself. "Is he?" "He's in critical condition. Dr. Caldwell, if you're harboring your sister, you need to understand the severity." "I don't know where she is," I cut in, watching Oliver's face crumple. She took her younger son for ice cream hours ago and hasn't returned. I just found evidence that might be related to your investigation." There was a pause. "Stay where you are. We're sending officers to your location." I hung up and pulled Oliver close, feeling him shake against me. "It's going to be okay," I lied, wondering how many times Celeste had fed him the same empty promise. 30 minutes later, my house was crawling with police. They photographed the envelope of cash, took statements, and asked endless questions about Celeste's behavior and possible destinations. I answered mechanically, my mind stuck on one horrifying thought. My sister had used her 7-year-old son as a shield for her getaway. "Mom!" Ava appeared in the doorway, eyes wide at the scene before her. "What's happening? Where's Lucas?" Question hit me like a physical blow. Lucas. Sweet, thumb-sucking Lucas, who'd already been through so much. Now just another pawn in Celeste's game. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry. Take care of Oliver. Lucas is safer with me." "That's from her," I told the detective, hands shaking as I handed over my phone. "She's not coming back this time, is she?" He gave me a sympathetic look. "We'll find them, Dr. Caldwell. But right now, we need to discuss temporary custody arrangements for Oliver." Oliver, who hadn't left my side since I found him, gripped my hand tighter. "He stays with me," I said firmly. "I'm his aunt. I'll call my lawyer tonight and start the paperwork." Later, after the police left and Ava helped Oliver set up properly in the guest room, I sat alone in my kitchen. The same kitchen where, just 2 nights ago, Celeste had promised no more games. The same kitchen where, 20 years earlier, our mother had assured me Celeste would grow out of her problems if we just gave her enough chances. My phone buzzed again. "Grant." "Nora? Is it true? The police just called me about Celeste and the bank." "It's true," I said, my voice hollow. "She's gone. She took Lucas. But Oliver." I swallowed hard. "Oliver's safe. He's with me." The silence on the other end spoke volumes. Finally, Grant cleared his throat. "Keep him safe, Nora. Don't let her near him again. No matter what she says, no matter what she promises. Some people don't deserve second chances." I looked at the empty envelope on my counter, evidence tag still attached, and realized he was right. Some things can't be forgiven. And some people don't want to be saved. A week after Celeste disappeared with Lucas, I found myself sitting across from Grant in my kitchen, both of us staring at a stack of custody paperwork. TV hummed in the background where Oliver watched cartoons with Ava, the same ones he'd watched that first morning. Except now, he watched them alone. "The police found her car abandoned at a bus station in Memphis," Grant said, running a hand through his graying hair. "Security footage shows her and Lucas boarding a bus to New Orleans, but after that..." He shrugged, the gesture heavy with defeat. I pushed a mug of coffee toward him. "There's something you're not telling me." He pulled out his phone, pulled up a news article. The bank robbery wasn't her first. There were others spread across 3 states. Different names, different disguises, but it was her. He paused. And she wasn't alone. The photo showed grainy security footage of Celeste with a man, both wearing baseball caps and sunglasses. Something about his stance, the way he held himself. "That's not you," I said slowly, "but he looks like you. My brother Marcus. He got out of prison 6 months ago." Grant's knuckles went white around his coffee mug. "I should have seen it coming. He and Celeste always had a connection." The implications hit me like a punch to the gut. All those times Celeste had run to Grant's family gatherings without him, claiming she was keeping the peace after their fights. All those late-night phone calls she claimed were about family emergencies. Does Oliver know about his uncle? No. Marcus went to prison when Oliver was 2. We told the boys he moved to Alaska. Grant's voice cracked. Now he's got Lucas. My baby boy is with a convicted felon and a mother who, he stopped, glancing toward the living room. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Tell Grant to back off. Lucas is fine. We're all fine. I showed Grant the message. His face hardened. She's using our son as leverage. Again. Before I could respond, Oliver appeared in the doorway. Dad? Can I show you something? We followed him upstairs to the guest room. His room now, I supposed. He pulled a shoebox from under the bed, opened it to reveal a stack of postcards. Mom sent these to Grandma Helena, he said quietly. I found them when we were cleaning out our house after the funeral. They're from all over, places Mom said she was going for work. But the dates. I picked up one postcard. Postmark was from Las Vegas, dated during a time Celeste had claimed to be at a teaching conference in Boston. Another from Miami when she told us she was visiting old college friends in Seattle. She's been planning this for years, Grant whispered. Using my brothers, stealing money, setting up escape routes? Oliver's voice was small. Is that why she took Lucas? Because he's little and won't remember like I do. Question hung in the air like smoke. I watched Grant struggle for an answer, saw the same helplessness I'd felt my entire life dealing with Celeste. My phone buzzed again. This time a photo, Lucas eating ice cream, smiling at the camera. Behind him, just visible in a mirror's reflection, Marcus's distinctive tattoo on his forearm. They're taunting us, Grant said through clenched teeth. But I was looking at Oliver, at the way his shoulders hunched as he stared at the postcards. At how much he looked like me at that age, watching Celeste get away with everything while I picked up the pieces. No, I said, deleting the photo. They're trying to keep us dancing to their tune. But we're not playing anymore. I turned to Oliver. How would you feel about changing schools? Starting fresh. He looked up, hope flickering across his face. You mean? We move, I said firmly. All of us. Somewhere they won't expect. No more reacting to Celeste's games. No more letting her control our lives. Grant nodded slowly. She'll hate losing her audience. Good, I replied, pulling Oliver close. Because this isn't about her anymore. It's about protecting what's left of our family. For the first time in days, Oliver smiled. It wasn't much, just a small upturn of his lips, but it felt like a victory. A tiny step toward healing the wounds my sister seemed determined to keep reopening. The breaking point came 3 weeks after we decided to move. I was packing Mom's china, the set she'd left me in her will. The one thing Celeste had actually seemed hurt not to receive, when I heard the crash from upstairs. I found Oliver in my bedroom, surrounded by shattered glass and spilled water. Mom's antique perfume bottle, the last birthday gift she'd given me before she died, lay in pieces at his feet. I'm sorry, he whispered, tears already streaming. I was just trying to smell it. Like Grandma. Something inside me snapped. Not at Oliver, never at him, but at everything the broken bottle represented. Years of Celeste's chaos, Mom's enabling, the constant expectation that I would be the responsible one, the understanding one. The one who kept picking up the pieces. It's okay, I said, but my voice shook. Just go downstairs. Please. As I knelt to clean up the mess, my phone buzzed. Another photo, Lucas at what looked like a carnival, cotton candy in hand. The timestamp showed it was from today. Behind him, a sign for New Orleans French Quarter. I didn't delete this one. Instead, I forwarded it to Detective Martinez with a short message. They're getting careless. The doorbell rang just as I finished sweeping up the last shards. Through the window, I saw Grant's car in the driveway. But when I opened the door, it wasn't Grant standing there. It was Marcus. Hey, sis-in-law, he said, that familiar Turner smile spreading across his face. Mind if I come in? I blocked the doorway with my body. Oliver's here. I know. That's why I came alone. He held up his hands, showing they were empty. Just want to talk. About Lucas. About Celeste. Aunt Nora, Oliver called from behind me. Who's at the? I slammed the door in Marcus's face and locked it. Oliver, go to Ava's room. Now. Call your father. Through the door, Marcus's voice carried. She misses him, you know. Both of them. But she had her reasons for choosing Lucas. He's special. Like her. Special how? I called back, my hand already on my phone. You really don't know? He laughed. All those times your mother covered for her. All those special doctors and alternative treatments. Did you never wonder what they were really for? Pieces started falling into place. Celeste's erratic behavior. Her obsession with Lucas's unique way of seeing the world. The way Mom had always insisted Celeste just needed extra support to manage her gifts. She's sick, I said flatly. And now she's making Lucas sick too. Sick is such an ugly word. I prefer enlightened. But hey, believe what you want. Just know this, we're taking Oliver too. Soon. Celeste says he has the potential, just needs the right guidance. I heard Oliver's muffled sob from upstairs, followed by Ava's voice telling him to hide in her closet. My hand tightened around my phone. If you come near my nephew again, I said through clenched teeth, I will burn your whole world down. And unlike Celeste, I don't make threats I can't follow through on. Funny, Marcus replied, his voice dropping to a whisper. That's exactly what your mother said right before she died. Right before Celeste convinced her to change that will. Wonder what else she convinced her of in those final days. The implication hit me like ice water. You're lying. Am I? Ask Oliver about the pills he found in Celeste's bag. Ask him what Grandma looked like that last night, when Celeste insisted on being alone with her. His footsteps retreated down the porch steps. But do it quick. Clock's ticking, sis-in-law. I waited until I heard his car pull away before racing upstairs. Found Oliver curled up in Ava's closet, clutching his phone. Dad's coming, he whispered. Did you know that was Uncle Marcus? I pulled him close, feeling him tremble. Oliver, those pills you found in your mom's bag, what did they look like? He described them perfectly. The same pills that had been missing from Mom's bedside table after she died. The death that everyone had called natural causes. Until now. Detective Martinez set the evidence bag on his desk, Mom's pill bottle, retrieved from where Oliver had hidden it in his shoebox of postcards. The autopsy was inconclusive, he said. Even if we prove these were in Celeste's possession, we can't prove she killed our mother, I cut in, my voice hollow. And now she's after Oliver. We don't know that for certain. He leaned forward. But there's something else. The bank robberies? They weren't random. Each one targeted safety deposit boxes belonging to former patients of a Dr. Samuel Chen. Mom's psychiatrist, I whispered. The one who treated Celeste when we were teenagers. And Lucas now, apparently. He slid a file across the desk. Dr. Chin specialized in children with supposed supernatural abilities. Your mother consulted him about Celeste for years. The file contained photographs. Celeste as a teenager, surrounded by strange equipment. Lucas in similar setups dated just months ago. Notes about enhanced perception and unique neural patterns. My phone buzzed. Celeste, remember when Mom said I was special? She was right. Lucas is too. Oliver could be if you'd just let him go. Another message followed immediately. Check your email. I did. There was a video attachment. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. Showed Mom in her hospital bed, pale and weak. Celeste's voice came from behind the camera. Tell Nora what you told me. About the money. I was wrong, Mom whispered. Celeste needs it more. The inheritance, the house. She has special needs. Nora will understand. She always understands. The video ended. Martinez watched me carefully. That was filmed the night before your mother died. She was drugged, I said. Confused, Celeste manipulated her, just like she's trying to manipulate Oliver now. Speaking of Oliver, Martinez hesitated. We got a hit on facial recognition. He was spotted at a bus station in Baton Rouge this morning. My heart stopped. That's impossible. He's at school. I dropped him off myself, but when I called the school, Oliver hadn't shown up for class. His backpack was gone from its usual spot by the door at home. In its place was a note in his careful handwriting. Aunt Nora, Mom says Lucas needs me. She says we're both special like her, and you'll try to stop us from being who we really are. I'm sorry about Grandma's perfume bottle. I'm sorry about everything. I sank onto the couch, the note crumpling in my fist. All this time, I'd been so focused on protecting Oliver from Celeste that I hadn't seen how she was poisoning his mind from afar. Just like she'd poisoned Mom. My phone buzzed again. A photo of Oliver and Lucas together, both smiling, somewhere I didn't recognize. Celeste's message followed. They're where they belong now. With someone who understands them. Who won't try to make them normal. We can track the phone, Martinez said, but I barely heard him. Because behind the boys in the photo was a familiar piece of furniture, Mom's antique writing desk. The one that had disappeared from her house right after she died. The one containing decades of family documents, medical records, and financial information. She's at Mom's lake house, I realized. The one Mom sold right before she got sick. Celeste must have bought it through a shell company. We'll get a warrant. There's no time. I grabbed my keys. She won't stay there long. And if she gets Oliver into Dr. Chen's program. Dr. Caldwell. Martinez's voice stopped me at the door. If what you're saying about your mother is true, your sister is dangerous. Let us handle this. But I was already walking away. Because he didn't understand. Celeste wasn't just dangerous, she was desperate. And desperate people would do anything to protect their delusions. I would know. After all, I'd spent my whole life desperately believing I could save her. This time, though, I wasn't going to save Celeste. I was going to stop her. The lake house looked exactly as I remembered, except for the fresh tire tracks in the gravel driveway. Mom's old wind chimes still hung from the porch, their gentle tinkling at odds with the tension in the air. I found them in the sunroom. Oliver and Lucas sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by papers covered in strange symbols. Celeste stood at Mom's writing desk, sorting through files. I wondered how long it would take you, she said without turning around. Oliver, take your brother upstairs. They're not going anywhere. I stepped into the room. It's over, Celeste. Detective Martinez is on his way with a warrant. She finally turned, and I barely recognized her. Her eyes had that familiar fevered gleam, but there was something else there now, something cold and calculating that hadn't been there before. You never understood, did you? She gestured to the papers around the boys. Mom knew. She saw our potential. Why do you think she spent all that money on Dr. Chen's treatments? She enabled your delusions because it was easier than getting you real help. Delusions? Celeste left. Oliver, show your aunt what you can do. Before I could stop him, Oliver closed his eyes in concentration. The wind chimes outside went silent. Then, one by one, the papers around him began to rise into the air. Jesus Christ, I whispered. What did you do to him? I helped him embrace who he is. Who we all are. She moved toward Lucas, who was watching the floating papers with wide eyes. Mom tried to suppress my abilities because of you. Your jealousy, your concerns. But she understood in the end. That's why she changed the will. After you drugged her, I said flatly. Just like you're drugging them. Papers dropped suddenly as Oliver's head snapped up. Mom? What's she talking about? Celeste's face hardened. Don't listen to her. She's trying to confuse you just like she confused Grandma. The pills in your bag, Oliver said slowly. The ones like Grandma's. Their medicine, Celeste snapped. To help you focus your abilities. Lucas takes them too, don't you, sweetie? But Lucas was staring at the fallen papers, thumb in mouth, tears rolling down his cheeks. They make my head hurt, he whispered. Something shifted in Oliver's expression. He stood up, moving away from the scattered papers. You said Grandma understood at the end. But she was scared. I heard her crying that night. Oliver, she begged you to stop. To let her sleep. His voice cracked. I didn't understand then, but you killed her, didn't you? Temperature in the room seemed to drop. Celeste's hand moved toward her pocket. Don't, I warned, but she was already pulling out a small bottle. 1 dose, she said, her voice eerily calm. That's all it takes to unlock their potential. To make them understand. She uncapped the bottle. Lucas, come here. No. Oliver grabbed his brother's hand. Aunt Nora, please. I lunged forward just as Celeste reached for Lucas. We collided hard, the bottle flying from her hand and shattering against the desk. Pills scattered across the floor. Run! I shouted to the boys. Outside now. They bolted, but as I tried to follow, Celeste grabbed my hair, yanking me back. You always ruin everything, she snarled. Just like you ruined things with Mom. We grappled, crashing into the desk. Papers went flying, medical records, bank statements, and underneath them all, a handwritten letter in Mom's shaky script. My dearest Nora, I'm so sorry. I should have protected you both better. Celeste needs help I can't give her anymore. Don't let her. The rest was illegible, smeared with what looked like tears or spilled water. Celeste saw it too. For a moment, she froze, something like recognition flickering across her face. That's when we heard the sirens. It's not too late, I said quietly. Get help. Real help. For the boys' sake. She looked at me for a long moment, tears filling her eyes. Then she smiled, that same sweet smile she'd used to charm our mother, our teachers, everyone who'd ever tried to help her. You're right, she whispered. I'm sorry. Then she shoved me hard against the desk and ran. By the time I recovered my balance, she was gone. But this time she'd left something behind. Her children. And the truth. 6 months after Celeste disappeared, I stood in my backyard watching Oliver teach Lucas how to pitch a baseball. The younger boy's thumb hadn't found its way to his mouth in weeks, and Oliver's nightmares had finally begun to fade. He's getting better at that, Grant said, joining me on the patio. We'd fallen into an unexpected co-parenting rhythm, sharing custody of both boys while the police continued their search for Celeste. The therapist says they both are. I handed him a coffee. Oliver asked about her yesterday. First time in months. Grant nodded, watching Lucas miss another catch. And he wanted to know if she was sick like Mom said or bad like the police think. I sighed. I told him sometimes people can be both. The investigation had revealed more than we'd expected. Dr. Chen's treatment program was under federal investigation for illegal drug trials. Mom's autopsy had been reopened, though the results were still inconclusive. And Celeste's trail led to a dozen different cities, each with its own string of crimes and confused victims who remembered a charming woman who seemed to know things she shouldn't. Aunt Nora, Oliver called out. Watch this. He threw the ball high, and this time Lucas caught it cleanly. The boy's face lit up with genuine pride, no supernatural theatrics needed. Later that evening, as I helped Oliver with his homework, he pulled something from his backpack, a worn envelope I recognized from Mom's writing desk. I found this when we were packing up the lake house, he said quietly. I wasn't sure if I should show you, but inside was a letter dated 3 days before Mom died. My dearest Nora, by the time you read this, I fear it will be too late for me. But perhaps not too late for Celeste or her boys. I enabled her for too long, believing love meant protecting her from consequences. I was wrong. You were always the strong one, not because you were perfect, but because you faced your imperfections with grace. I'm sorry I didn't tell you more often how proud I was of that strength. Take care of them, Nora. Not like I did, but like you would have done all along. With love and regret. Mom. There's something else, Oliver said, pulling out a small notebook. Grandma's diary. She wrote about Mom's abilities, about how she thought they were real at first, but then realized. Realized what? That Mom believed in them so much she made other people believe too, like she did with me in the papers. He looked down. I can't really make things float, can I? I pulled him close. No, honey. But you can do something more important. You can see the truth, even when it's hard. My phone buzzed, another unknown number. But this time, instead of photos or threats, there was just a short message. You were right. Getting help. Don't look for me. Take care of my boys better than she took care of us. I showed Grant the message later, after the boys were asleep. Think it's really her? He asked. Does it matter? I watched Oliver and Lucas through the window, peaceful in their shared bedroom. They're where they need to be now. And you? Are you where you need to be? I thought about Mom's letter, about Celeste's message, about all the years I'd spent trying to fix a family that was broken long before I understood why. I'm exactly where I should have been all along, I said. Right here. That night, I dreamed of wind chimes and floating papers, of pills that promised miracles and letters that spoke hard truths. But when I woke, the only magic I needed was the sound of children laughing downstairs, the smell of breakfast cooking, and the simple miracle of a family healing, not through supernatural powers or dramatic gestures, but through the quiet strength of choosing love over fear, truth over delusion, and forgiveness over revenge. Even if some of that forgiveness would always remain a work in progress,